So Vic, with internet marketing and sales, there's got to be some, in that whole process that's behind the scenes. I got to think that there are some specific, benchmarks or touch points that you could, identify with a dealer to kind of see how they're progressing through that progress.
Good point, Warren. Very good question. I draw an analogy to a fellow that his car breaks down and he takes into a service department, and the mechanic doesn't just start tearing out the fuel pump, working on the brakes, checking on timing, all that kind of stuff. There's a process that the service department and service writers all go through before they start tearing a car apart. Same with internet marketing. We have 5 distinct benchmarks that we have come up with. Unique visitors, leads, appointments kept, and sales. Each one is a significant event within the sales process of internet marketing that we can look at. If one of the benchmarks is down, we can correct it. But each one is a significant event within the whole sales process of internet marketing.
So when somebody's setting goals then on those benchmarks, what do you recommend? Do you just kind of take an industry standard, or do you how do you determine what a reasonable goal for a dealer would be on any of those benchmarks?
So the first thing we look at is the unique visitors. We try and get a past record of it through Google Analytics. But short of that, what we do is we take the dealership's market area, take its population, times it by 5%, which is what the industry takes as the people in the sales funnel looking, either researching for vehicle or in the delivery mode, but somewhere in that whole sales funnel. Take that 5%, times it by his market share, and the market share they can get from their manufacturer. And then we divide it by the amount of franchises that sell the same brand in his marketplace. That gives us the start of a benchmark. We compare that to Google Analytics if we have it, and then we take the highest of the two. So if it's the Google Analytics is higher, we'll take his Google Analytics. If it isn't as high as what his market share should be for those leads or for those unique visitors, we take that. Mm-hmm. So that's our first benchmark. From there, we have a set of percentages that we would turn into leads. We expect a certain percentage to turn into appointments kept, and then finally sales.
Okay. So if you're working with me and I'm a dealer, and I want to just, set a really high objective, for any of those, is that a smart strategy, or kind of grow into the target, or how do you coach a dealer to set goals?
So what I try and do with a dealer, similar as what Dan does with his floor training, right? You have to see where the dealer is today. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to take a look at incremental upward trends and coach the dealer on how to get better upward trends. For unique visitors to leads, we take a look at a dealer, and he may have gotten lots of leads, but if he hasn't got enough pictures on his site, because AutoNet Dealer Solutions websites take up to 30 pictures, video, tons of data. If that isn't on the vehicle, we'll find that it gets lots of leads, but not qualified leads. Leads that are hard to turn into appointments. So the more information you give the client, in our estimation, the more quality the leads are. So that's our first recommendation, and we work and coach from there. Automotivators, and Dan could probably talk more about this better than I can, is once those leads come in, how do we incrementally get those appointments and then appointments capped, right, Dan?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think, what you've talked about on the difference in the tool or the technology of the website. It's really critical, because the number of leads alone can't give you success if it's not giving you, the customer, a good experience. So there's a high desire to look at a product, and then that lead becomes a high quality lead. So right now there's a lot of websites that just provide a lot of information but not the buying path. So even though you might have a high number of leads, you're going to have a difficulty in converting those to appointments. Yeah. So there's two things. There's the technology, and then it's the process of the engagement that you can move those benchmarks up. So for the dealer, saying, well, where should I be? The most important thing is where you are and the things that we can look at that can move it. So some of that is people skills, but some of it is maybe changing your technology.
Yeah. I think that with today's technology for content management systems within the dealership and the websites, the fact that they can load pictures, a lot of the technology is in the dealer's hands, and they can control some of that. But unless a dealer is proactive with taking those leads that are highly qualified and turning them into test appointments, it's just a waste of leads. And that we're finding that sometimes that's where it's lost. It's almost like, how do I get into demonstrations of vehicles if I don't do proper presentations, right?
Yeah.
So,
So what dealers need to embrace is tracking is not difficult to get a handle on it, but you have to make a determined effort to make it happen. So you need a mechanism and you need the disciplines within your dealership. There's no excuse for not knowing where you're at and where you're going.
Yeah.
And without that, your radar is broken and it's very difficult to make intelligent decisions.
we noticed in the past when we had a call from an unhappy dealer, he would say the website isn't working because he's not selling cars and he doesn't understand the whole thought process that goes from one point to the next without having the process there. Similar to what you guys train as far as on-floor training, because really phone calls, internet leads, walk-in traffic, although they're completely different forms of communication, there's still forms of communication that have to be turned into physical presence, right?
Yes, and all those KPIs that you mentioned that you're tracking, right, from uniques all the way to sold, there's an entire product set of skills and structures and strategies that your staff needs to be totally up to speed on and embrace to maximize those conversion rates.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Yeah. So if a dealer needs to improve those things, just identifying the benchmarks and what to track is probably not enough. How do you change performance in a dealership once they desire that change?
Well, one of the things between AutoNet Dealer Solutions and Automotivators, sorry about that, we've come up with a 2-day training course that teaches the dealer to identify these benchmarks, work within those benchmarks, and we work with strategies to improve each benchmark. Through a full year, we sit in with the dealer and help make suggestions and recommendations to help move those benchmarks upward. And that's all part of that ROI training program that we've come up with.
Key to those, Warren, is obviously it's a very hands-on interaction with the dealer, because every dealer will have different configurations of staff and the amount of resources they'll put behind it, and different people in different job functions. So it's trying to find the right structure for that dealership's configuration, and then working with them progressively throughout the year, because they're going to run into different roadblocks and different challenges that they're going to need assistance in getting beyond. But that's where the progression comes. They're going to get stuck in places. We help them get around those roadblocks and keep the momentum going. Because it's obvious, if the dealer had the answer to solve all those things, his performance wouldn't be where it is now. So they recognize, look, we need some help. This program is all encompassing to assess everything from the tools to the structures to the delivery so that they can learn to become consistent.